And our next guest this morning is Mr. Viktor Kipiani, chairman of Geocase. It's a Georgian think tank organization. Sir, pleasure to have you with us. Thanks so much for joining us. All right,
Good morning. Thank you.
So the president's veto was overturned yesterday, I think early morning, Tuesday, and a plenary session was held, and the vote to pass it with 84 votes for, mainly from the governing Georgian Dream Party, versus 4 votes against, with the opposition abstaining. That's my first question. The opposition is the one that was demonstrating out in the streets, yet they abstained from the vote. What happened here?
Yes, they have abstained from the vote, even if they were to participate in the voting. It was quite clear that the veto would be overcome. And it came as no surprise. Georgian Dream has enough seats in the parliament to challenge any type of presidential veto. The next question now, what follows as a consequence of that decision of enacting the law on the foreign influence transparency? We're already witnessing a very severe backlash by different European partners and the United States of America. Unfortunately, sadly, we have to expect some repercussions, but it's also the question to the broader Georgian society, how the Georgian society would challenge that decision, which runs contrary to the broad public sentiments.
Right, and we also now see on the screens protest unfolding in Georgia. Recently, Georgian president mentioned and suggested a referendum. So what do you think of that solution, and do you think that it will go through?
Frankly speaking, to me, it was not clear enough. Yesterday's statement by the president of Georgia still requires some clarification. What could be a precise wording for the referendum? We all are aware that we have a clear and explicit proviso in the Georgian constitution, which state that Georgia's state borders have to use their best efforts to move the country toward the European and Euro-Atlantic integration. So if the referendum would be about the same topic, I would be, frankly speaking, arguing about revisiting that issue again, because it's, as I've said, clearly set forth in the Constitution. So, but as I mentioned when starting my response to your question, still there is some ambiguity about the potential or tentative referendum. So we have to expect more to come within the next days.
All right. Well, another kind of referendum could be the elections that are coming up. What chances does Georgian Dream have of winning the next election? And if they don't win the next election, how difficult would it be to repeal this foreign agents bill?
Well, that's the most critical question, which we're repeating over and over. What was the incentive or the rationale behind the Georgian Dream reintroducing that bill, that law? At the background of continued statements by Georgian Dream that this is the longest period of stability in the country, which is frankly speaking true, but still, by reintroducing that bill, they have triggered the instability domestically, and they have triggered quite severe frictions with the international partners. That being said, speaking now about high chances of a success or potential success by Georgian Dream would be over-exaggerating, realistically speaking, over-exaggerating the expectations. But another side of the coin, which is even more challenging, is getting to those elections, because the situation on the ground at this moment is so tense. And the protests are to increase and become more robust and more vigorous. So in those conditions, although there is not much time left still till the October election, still that would be very precarious and very slippery path to follow. So a challenge. It's also a challenge for Georgian society and for Georgian opposition. to keep a required degree of pressure, but still not to capsize the boat and get into the elections.
And also, you mentioned international response. I would love to now deepen that subject. How might this legislation now affect Georgia's aspiration to join the European Union?
Immediate statements which we've had by the various stakeholders on the EU side that there are, practically speaking, no chances to open EU membership accession talks by end of this year. There were statements which speak to the fact that Georgian authorities have stopped or postponed, at least temporarily, Georgia's accession into the EU. So what we are to expect, as I already mentioned, some repercussions. There could be visa restrictions, primarily by the United States. We have to see what repercussions or what consequences could follow by the European Union. Quite likely, those critics in the via different political statements would transform into very specific decisions. Frankly speaking, at this point of time, as we speak here, we are receiving criticism from practically speaking, every place of the world, except of one, Russia. Russia, which is extremely happy with enacting that law, and extremely happy, does not beat around the bush in terms of expressing that happiness, how the things are developing on the ground.
Well, I think that statement clears everything up for us, unfortunately. Sir, thanks very much for joining us this morning.
Thank you.